So we're in Siman Kuf Pei Tes, towards the end. We're holding by Sif Kof Zayin, which deals with a young girl, a tinoikes, and then we're going to go into a skena, an older woman that was passed beyond the menopause. And eventually also we'll deal with a pregnant woman. These women have certain halachas that are unique. As we began to explain the beginning of the very, very beginning of Hilchas Niddah, that certain women don't have to be choishesh. In other words, the ones that are to be choishesh are women of a certain age that are expected to see. But other than that, Ktana, shelo higiu limia neurim, as we saw in Siman Kuf Pei Daled, or lo hivia simanim, in other words, young girl that does not have the simanim, the signs that she's an adult, or that she's not come to the age of 12, or she is a mesulekes damin, like a skena, in other words, she's beyond the menopause. So we've already mentioned in the very beginning of Hilchas Niddah that they are pretty much in a stage where they don't have to be concerned. They don't have to be chosh, unless of course something happens, which is what we're going to see soon. It still can happen to them. But before we go and see the halachas of a tinoikes and a skena, I want to review, since we had a little bit of a break, the last two seifim very, very briefly that we covered, Kof Hey and Kof Vav. In Kof Hey, the main difference between Kof Hey and the seifim before that we were talking about, women who has a veset aguf, that she senses something in her body, and it usually comes at a certain time of the day. But it could come any day. And since it could come any day, she doesn't have to be worried about a day. She only needs to be worried about when she begins to feel those symptoms. So therefore the Mechaber told us in Kof Daled that Kulam ein chosheshim lahem elo l'sha'ato, only for that particular hour. In other words, if she feels something at a certain hour, that's when she has to begin to be choshesh, and not before. And as long as she has, of course, those symptoms, she has to be concerned that she may be seeing it at any of that, at any moment. However, in Kof Hey, the Mechaber added that in Echad Me'elu Bal Yadua, if what you have really is a combination of the symptom plus a Zman Yadua, at a certain time that it comes, As Vaday Asura Kol Oina Saveses Kemo Veset Yomim Greda. Then she's asura throughout the entire oina. In other words, we don't just say at a particular moment or during the time that she's feeling whatever she's feeling, but once the veset that is based on a physical sensation is also coming at a certain time always, then, as the Mefarshim explained, there is an additional factor here involved. There's the time. It's not just a feeling that she has. So since there's a time factor involved, the Mechaber says, we're machmir kol oinas aveses. So that maybe I didn't clarify enough last time. In other words, even though it appears to be that it's following the logic of Kof Daled, that we're concerned about, of course, when she's going to feel it, yes, but even though she's no longer feeling it, we're still going to consider the entire oina. Why? Because here, there's also the additional factor of lizman yadua. It arrives at a certain time, so therefore we consider that whole time in the same way as veset yomim greda, which means just like she would have a veset of yomim without michush, she gets it at a certain day. You don't say, well, only 4 to 5. No, you say the whole day, the whole oina, the whole time when she regularly sees. So that's the difference between Kof Hey and Kof Daled. However, I omitted a Taz. The Taz, I think, is important to just mention, and he says like this: don't get confused between this halacha and another halacha that we said before. When a woman has a veset at a certain day, and she has a michush as well. Let me read it to you. Siman Kuf Pei Daled. Because over there, he says like this: there's no real chiluk ben kavua beyom oloi. In other words, in reality, there shouldn't be a difference between whether a veset is kavua, if she has a certain feeling, and that feeling comes at a certain time or not. Ela le'inyan heter lifnei sha'as haveses. The muta shelo keveset de yomim. In other words, when she is feeling something, that helps because she doesn't have to be worried about earlier. Why? Because we need the yoim ve'aveset aguf. In other words, whatever she's feeling plus the time, they're both contributing. So, just because the day arrived, I don't have to be concerned because it's a combination of the two. So what was said before, and he quotes the Rabbit, of course, here, that's where the sheet is taken from, says it wouldn't really matter, except for that over there, she won't have to be concerned until she begins to feel what she regularly feels, even though the day has arrived. Aval kan, he says, here, in his opinion, the Taz, we're talking about achar veses aguf. B'zeh shapi yesh lechalek de bekavua leyoim osu min atcholas veses aguf ad klois oiso oina hen yom vehen laila. Aval veset aguf belo yom kavua muta techeb achar shekol veses aguf. B'zeh hadover yesh lechalek b'neim. In other words, here, the way he clarifies it is, since we're talking about after it's over, not before, after it's over, whatever she feels, the sneezing, it's over, it's no longer sneezing. So after that, she stopped sneezing? No, because the oina of sneezing is happening at a certain day, even though you stop sneezing, we're going to go till the end of the day. Had it been just sneezing without a particular day, then it would stop. Once the sneezing stopped, after that I wouldn't be worried about it. I wouldn't have to be choishish for it. Now we're assuming that she's going to get it, but for some reason she didn't get it. Do I still have to be choishish after she stopped sneezing? No.
Being concerned or not being concerned, checking oneself and being husband.
Right, exactly. So because it can happen that a woman, especially with a Basar kavua, right? What did we say? She checked herself. She did what she was supposed to. Nothing happened. She's okay. It's not for sure that it's going to happen.
To the task then in days.
Right.
If sneezed on that particular day, either morning or night,
right.
Hence for a period of time, even now she checked herself.
Right.
But she did the same.
Right.
But therefore, for that period of time, she has to separate it from her husband.
That's correct. Only because in Kof Hey we're talking about not only a physical feeling or physical sensation like sneezing, but also that it always comes at a certain day. So the time is also a factor here, not just the feeling that she has. So we have to allow for the time to go by.
Question.
Yeah.
This is more. Is the issue that when a woman sees a particular type of blood,
right? Sure.
And if she sees this blood, then this type of blood is for her being in a purity.
Yes.
Or is the fact that she has this blood that is the issue?
That is the issue itself. That causes the issue.
Yeah. Is that causes or it is?
It is.
Because if it causes then it would be...
We spoke a little bit about it. It's in some ways a machlokes. Do we say that the tumor is there already, and this is like
is the blood a symptom for
spiritual? Exactly,
or is the blood the tumor? Is the blood
we say that the blood is the tumor itself, but what you're saying is a question. That is that only indicative of the fact that she's already tmeya? The makor is the makor tameh, or is this what's rendering her tmeya? So that's a good analysis.
No, because the reason I'm asking with respect to what you taught.
Sure. How would that go with the task?
Because I was wondering if the bleeding itself is done.
Okay.
Then why should the bleed different than a migraine headache that comes regularly with her period or whatever?
Oh, so you're saying is that once she gets it, we should
distinguish between...
No, but the blood is the proof. At the very least, the blood is the proof.
That's okay.
Right.
That's okay.
Sure.
But nonetheless, I think that I see. So once
in the time of the Gemara, it was a question whether all the taharas that she made till now. Do we say that she was already unclean and now she's just seeing it now? It was a more relevant question of taharas. Sure. So it was more relevant than for other reasons. Yeah. But now we say daya shata. Those as of now.
Right.
All right. And anyway, in Sif Kov Vov, the Mechaber is speaking about akira saveset, which is a possibility that a woman can uproot a veset. In the event that it's a veset that comprises of two things, time plus a sneezing or yawning, then the betu would have to be uprooted in order for it to be called a true akira saveset, as we said. In other words, just not sneezing on that day, or just that day coming, if it was one or the other, it's not sufficient if she didn't see when she was supposed to. It would have to be that she sneezed on that day and nothing happened, right? That's how Mechaber explains it. In the case where you have a vesed that consists of two factors, Eino nekar elim kin boha mikre shalosh panim, 3 times, of course, vizmano velorosa, aber b'mikre levadoi is not in itself an indicator, or zman levadoi, it's not an indicator, shelorosa b'em eino nekar. However, what we did say is that if she did sneeze 3 times on Rosh Chodesh, for example, and she didn't see, even though it's not nekar completely, because you need, let me read it from the Pischei Tshuva, who brings it down. If she did not sneeze on that day, she would still have to be worried that if the day comes and she does sneeze. So what do we gain from it? That she didn't sneeze, but it was already Rosh Chodesh, and she didn't see. In other words, as long as she did not have any pihako, she did not yawn, she did not sneeze, if that day came, at least she doesn't have to worry about it, kozman that she didn't sneeze. Because today is the time that she usually sneezes or she yawns. But since 3 times went by on that day that she did not, in other words, if the day came and she did not pee, because she doesn't have to be concerned. It still may happen to her, because that 3 times at least gives her a semi-chazaka that she doesn't have to be worried on this day that it may happen, until, of course, she does have a pihako. So for the time being, so long as there's no pihako on Rosh Chodesh, or whatever day it is that she usually sees it, she gains that she's not choishesh. And this is, again, only because 3 times came and she didn't have the piyako on that day, and she didn't see. So at the very least, she gains a little bit of an akira, as we said last week. It's a partial akira that she doesn't.
Akira is that she did yawning, or is the that she yawned on the day? Blood.
No. In this case, of the example that I gave you, the Pischei Tshuva is that she hasn't yawned yet. The day has come by. Does she have to be choshesh that she may be yawning today? Because she usually does have that feeling, that sensation on that day. So since on 3 occasions she did not pihako, and therefore not see, there's no akira. Why isn't there no complete akira? Because for a complete akira to be, there has to be that pihako, and she didn't see on that day. Right. So there's no complete akira here. She just didn't. She didn't sneeze. So how do I know that next time, if she does sneeze, it may happen to her? Just because she didn't sneeze doesn't mean anything. She just didn't sneeze. I don't know why. It was a good day. She had a good day that day. So, but if it's 3 times it happens that she didn't sneeze on Rosh Chodesh, at the very least she gained that she doesn't have to be worried about it until she sneezes. Once she sneezes on that day, then of course she has to be concerned. All right. So let's go on to the next brief seifim. Now these seifim may appear a little bit complex, and since they're not so relevant, especially the one with Tenoikes, not too much time is really spent on it by others, but we're going to go through it anyway. Sif Kov Zayin. Tenoikes shelo higia zmano lirois. Okay, so we're dealing with a child under 12, or even above 12, who does not have the simanim. We know she doesn't have the simanim. So she's a child, so she's not expected to see, not expected to have her period. So Tenoikes shelo higia zmano lirois v'hiktano shelo higia limei haneurim. In other words, she's considered a ketana that did not yet come to, I guess in Yimei we could translate the teenage years. Afilu hivir shtei se'aros, even though she may have the simanim, but she's underage, or she's above the age, but she has no simanim. They're both the same.
Under 12, even though she can see.
No, we didn't say it. We didn't use the word started to see it. We're describing an age right now. Whether a ketana would be under 12 even if she has simanim of an adult girl, or she's an adult, but she has no simanim, so she's like a child. So the status of this individual called tinoikes, or ketana, right, could be either under age 12 with simanim or above the age of 12 or 12 in one day without simanim. So that's what the Mechaber says. It's not her time to see. Even though she has the signs of adulthood. This individual could still be kovea veset. He kovaat veset. Kishar noshim b'sholosh re'iyos, kishar havestos, u'be'arba beveset ha'aflogos. So what did Mechaber tell us right now? That even though she's not meant to see, and usually they don't, it could happen that she did see early. Now, with girls, they have it at different ages. It does vary with them when they see it. But for a ketana, for a very young girl to see it, is not very common. But it can happen. So what's the halacha here? The halacha here is that we treat it as the real thing. So what if she's young? If, in fact, it happened in the same way that it happens to adult. What does that mean? If she had 3 times. Or 4 if we're dealing with haflaga. Because remember, with haflaga, you need 4 times to establish a number of days that have transpired. You have 3 into the 3 intervals, exactly. Right. So that's what the Mechaber says, that he koivas veset, she can establish a veset. Now veset, what does a veset mean? Not a one-time thing. It could be that she will have a veset if it repeats itself. Now, repeating itself would mean that it would have to come back at the same time, or in the same amount of days. It doesn't mean that she saw it, last month she had it on this date, this month. Sporadic. She can establish a veset if in fact it's a veset. So that's what the Mechaber is going to emphasize over here, is that since we're dealing with a girl that is not supposed to be, so we're not choishish. She doesn't have to be choishish, as we explained before. But a veset may happen. And it has to be a real veset. So Yikovat veset kishar nosh is just like the other women. Ela sheyesh hefresh beino legdoilo. There's a difference between her and an adult. She'af al pi shehuchza korah v'kova lo veset, that even though she did establish a veset, a period, and over time she had it 3 times. Im posko gimel oinos beinonios shem tzadik yom. If she stopped, she didn't have it for 3 oinos, middle time frames or periods, which the total amounts to 90 days. Velora saw, and she no longer saw it again. Eino chosheshes leveset ha'echod klal. She no longer has to be concerned about her original veset that she established it. V'chozra lekadmuso, and she goes back to her original status of a child. I'm going to read on a little bit more. Here comes the chiddush. She had a break for 90 days. She didn't. So what do we say? Immediately after that 90 days of not seeing, we say not only akira safeset, which is what would happen with an ordinary woman, right? 3 times go by and she doesn't see it. The veset is gone. We say something else over here. The chiddush here is with the girl that is underage. Chazor lekadmusa. She goes back to original status of mesulekes, she doesn't have blood. She's not supposed to have blood. We're not choishish. And even though later on, chazor liros beoison oinos shehoiso lemuda liros bohem, and even if later on sometime, all of a sudden we see, wow, she just saw it, on this and this day, like she used to see it. Eino chosheshes. She doesn't have to be choishish that she's getting her period every month. Unless, of course, she goes back and sees it 3 times again from scratch. While if bas domim, that's really the right term, not mesulekes domim. Mesulekes domim is a term used by a skein or by an older woman. Mesulekes, the blood is gone. Here, the term is she'eno bas domim. She's not supposed to have blood yet. It's coming out of her body. So it apparently could just be that somehow her body produced this blood, mikre, by chance. Okay, so what did we see so far from this halacha? That a little girl usually does not see it. Let's say we're talking about an 11-year-old girl, not supposed to see it. What if she sees it? And she saw it 3 times, And as we're going to soon see in the Mechaber, those 3 times they need to be regular, not too many, no changes allowed in them. So there's obviously a trend, even though it's a child. So apparently she's close to adulthood. Maybe she's just seeing it early.
In a sport or in a
No. We're not talking about a one-time thing.
Oh.
We're talking about she is capable. It's possible for a little child to develop a vesed like an ordinary woman, an adult, and then she would have to be choishish for that vesed like any woman would. If it's a one-time thing, we're not choishish, the Mechaber says. Not only that, if after she established the vesed, she went for 90 days and did not see, she goes back to her original status of being considered a girl who's in a bas damim. She doesn't have any blood, and therefore, if it does happen now, she says, okay, something happened. It's by chance. It's not indicative that she's getting her period, she's becoming an adult. It doesn't mean anything of that, because she's still a child. So everybody asks, what's really the difference between her and an adult? I mean, an adult too. If she goes without seeing blood for 90 days, her vesed is also nekar. What's the difference? So the Shach proposes several differences.
Well, isn't it really simple? By a woman who is not, doesn't she? Even if she doesn't see it all, she doesn't see it.
Doesn't have to be choishish, right? Exactly. Until she sees a certain day.
So
And that
there are certain that's only if she sees.
Only if she sees irregular, right? So anyway, we're going to see what the simple difference is. But besides the simple difference, the Mechaber here says for some reason that these are 90 days. So they pick on this. 3 oinus beinus, I mean, that's 3 months. Why do you have to say 90 days? Apparently, there are some who hold that the pshat here is that Mechaber says with the girl, it's 90 days, not more. With an adult woman, it could be technically that her haflaga is more than 90 days. She sees every 35 days. And that's what you would need for akira savesed by an adult, right? You would need to have an akira of the exact period. Whether it was every 2 months she skips. Remember that kind of a period, right? It would have to be exactly whatever it was that she had established. Whereas here it would be 90 days and she goes back to being a child. The Shach brings down that this may be one of the differences on why he points to the 90 days, because by a child we're not so... Well, obviously he quotes it. It's all taken from the Gemara. I mean, this is one of the sugyas there. The question is, does it mean literally 90 days, or is if that's just an example, of oina beinonis? Anyway, the Shach brings this down.
The way you report Achronim, how they comment on,
right?
It made it sound these were a chiddush and a mechaber.
No, I made it sound like that because it could be this lav dafka, but the Shach wants to say that this is a possibility that this would be a difference, that with the tinoikas we would be more mekel. 90 days, and you're back to being a girl, back to being a young girl. The simple difference, however, is that a woman who had an akira's vesed, if she ever goes back to her original vesed, all you need is one time. As we're going to soon see it inside. For her, if she goes back and sees it on the same day or same period amount of time that she used to see it, she's back to normal. You don't need to 3 times again. With the little girl, she has to reestablish it 3 times again. So that's a major difference. So with the little girl, even if she went back, that's what he says over here. Afilu chazor liros ba'oison oinos shehoiso lemudo liros bohen eno chosheshes. Ad shetachzo v'tikvo eno gimel pe'omim, until she goes back and reestablishes it 3 times. Why? If she'eno bas damim. So it could be that the original blood, or whatever blood she did see, was a mikre hoya.
So by an adult woman,
Right.
if her not having 3 times, now she sees it 1 time.
Right.
She doesn't have a pattern yet.
She doesn't need a pattern anymore.
So now, but
She's
she
go
1 time.
1 time is enough.
To what? To
To
reintroduce the old pattern?
the old pattern, yeah.
Or to be hoishish?
No, the old pattern. because she used to have a vesset.
Well,
Somehow she stopped for 90 days.
That would be supposed that she has to have since she saw before.
Yes. It came back on the day. She had a break for 90 days for some reason.
She may have.
Well, assuming she didn't, obviously, yeah.
No, she saw on a different day.
Then it's
have to be just for the.
for those, yeah, exactly, 30, yeah, exactly, Benonis and so forth. Yeah, she lost her Vesed Kavur. Now she has a Vesed Shena Kavur. Here the Taz, and it looks like a lot of Achronim are machmir like this Taz, that with a little girl, even if she doesn't see 3 times, the Taz says that we're choished that she is muchzekes b'domim, and at the very least she has to be choished like a vesed she'eno kavua. I'm not sure why others would be machmir against the Ramah. The Ramah later on we're going to see says she's not even choished to a vesed she'eno kavua. So I'm not really sure why one would be machmir her against the Ramah. But anyway, that's what the Taz brings down. Shach is choilek on that, of course. Since the time has not come for her to see, they didn't require her to be choishish even for a vesed she'eno kavua. All right, now let's say the Mechaber goes on to say, "Ro'aso gimel re'iyos migimel oinos mechuvonos shelo pichaso velo hisiro nizgala shedilug harishon eino silug domim elo shinui vesed." She now went back and saw repeatedly, with breaks in between of 90 days, right? Also, gimel re'iyos, 3 times she saw, mi gimel oinos mechuvonos, from 3 oinos that are precise. In other words, what's precise? Shelo pichasa velo yisiro. She didn't have it less time or more time, but an exact amount of time in between that she did not see. Then what do we say? Nizgala, we see that the dilug harishon, the first time she skipped for 3 months, Eino siluk domim, that was not really meant that the blood went away. Elo shinui veset, obviously what it meant was that her veset was changing. Lefichach rio rishona shemimeno ischilo mitztarefes legimol rios achroinos v'nimtzu daled reiyos v'gimol aflogos mineim mitzadik letzadik. Therefore what you have is the first reiyah combining with the next 3 to form haflaga of 4, with 90 days in between, and this is the trend or the vesed that she has. Avalim pichaso o hoisiro shelo hoyo areiyos mechuvonos az I efshal rishonos listaref. The ad shetire daled reiyos mechuvonos eno kovas vesed aflogos. In other words, if the number if they were not, I guess you could call it symmetrical, Ilan. Yeah. If they were not exactly the same, they were not mechuvonos, then you cannot include the first one until she does see. Now, the Shach explains that you could have 93, 92, 91, 90. In other words, you are able to have a steady. The question, however, is legabe the first one. Do I add that first one to the other ones or not? So for that, there would have to be either a consistency of the exact amount of days, or at least a dilug that can be seen over 4 times. That's all the Mechaber is saying here, that if they would not be the exact same thing, then they would not, of course, constitute a vesed for a flaga. That's the basic requirement of having a vesed, is that they do appear at regular intervals. If not, then it could just be that it's a mikre. It could just be like any other mikre. That by chance she saw blood, and just this time it was so many days, this time it was so many days, but with no particular trend. All right. Now let's go on to skena. So the halachas with the child are pretty straightforward. She's not expected to see it. If she does see it, then we treat it like an adult. However, there's one advantage or one difference, that if she does stop for 90 days, and later on she saw again, even on the same day or same amount of days, it would require her to reestablish it 3 times. Whereas by a regular adult, she wouldn't need 3 times. If she went back to seeing exactly on the same day, then that's her old vesed. Then once is enough. She has to be choshesh for that day. Okay. In Sivkov Ches V'chein Skeno, an older woman, she'ovru oleh shalosh oinos mishskino, if she has 3 periods that she skipped when she became old, and we're going to have to explain what old means in a moment, ve'lo rasan she did not see, arizu mesulekes damim we consider her mesulekes dami. She has no blood. In other words, the blood is gone. Ve'eno chosheshes levesto rishon, then she doesn't have to be concerned with her first original vesed. Just to include the Ramah here, B'siyosef b'shem Marashbo, uktana uskena eno chosheshes levesto she'en gavua. In other words, a ktana and skena do not have to be concerned for vesed she'en gavua. So that's an important halacha. It could happen once in a while that she saw blood. Does that mean, she's still seeing for skena? No. Once we determine that she's mesulekes damin, she's not choshesh for vesed she'en gavua. It's just a fluke. Maybe she got excited one month. Maybe something happened. She was afraid. Anything is possible. But it does not mean that she has to be choshesh for it. And the same with Aktana. She's not expected for her to see. And that's the main svara behind those who hold that she's not choshesh for vesed she'en gavua, because it's not expected. So if she does see, it's a mikre. It's incidental. Okay. So we're talking about a skena, an older woman. What's an older woman? So all the Mechaber tells us over here, so far, is that from the time she got old, in other words, don't think that this can happen in her 30s, and not necessarily in her 40s either, somehow when she's considered old. And what happened during that stage of her life? She stopped seeing 3 periods. Now, women can stop seeing for all kinds of reasons. Even young women can stop seeing, and sometimes for a long time. A change of weather, change of location, travel, a lot of things can happen. And we're not talking about a pregnant woman now. We're talking about a regular adult. It could happen that for a while she stopped. But it doesn't mean that it's gone forever. By a skena, we're saying that it's gone forever, and therefore what? That's going to help us with any chashash in the future. Does she have to be concerned like she used to be? Because that's the halacha, right? Any woman who's expecting to see periods has to be choshesh certain times of the month. But here, she missed 3 periods. Well, she missed 3 periods with the vesek kavua, so she got rid of that vesek kavua. But it could still happen. We don't know when. But we wouldn't be surprised if it happens on some day. And then we'll worry about that day or those days. If there's a new vesek kavua. But this is a status called mesulekes damim, a woman at a certain age. By the way, there's more to this than what I'm saying. A woman who has reached this point, there's a real change in her body, and you don't want to tell the woman that you're an old lady. It's a very sensitive thing. What do you mean old? But aside from sensitivities, a woman after she no longer sees blood basically does not have kids. It usually goes together. If she's still able to see, still having her period, she may still be able, not a guarantee, but still may be able to have children. At this point, it's almost impossible. Almost. There are miracles. There's all kinds of situations. All right, so all we know is that at a certain stage in life, it could be that the siluk adomim is real. It's not just that her vesed is gone and she may be reestablishing a new vesed. Okay, but what is skena? How do you determine that? At what age? And that's not so simple. In the Gemara, there's a whole discussion about when is a skena. There's no age. And one way that it is explained, the Gemara, is that when they call her Ima, in a fondly way, even though she's not the mother, today we would call her grandma. I guess depending on the country or depending on where you live, there may be different terms used to call somebody who's older. And if you imagine calling somebody a grandma, she gets upset at you. All right? I'm not grandma. With grandma meaning older lady, senior citizen. Says, why are you calling me that? If she gets upset, she's not a skena. That means she's still bothered by it. She's not comfortable with it. Eino makpedes is a sign that she may be a skena. Eino makpedes means she's not bothered by being called that. But if she is, then there's another explanation or another description of she's not embarrassed. She's not embarrassed when they call her. So it could be that at some point, of course, she's still bothered by it, and a little bit later, she stops being bothered by it. And that point is when she halachically becomes a skena. Do we need both? So that's another question in halacha. Do you need also that she's not embarrassed? What if she's embarrassed but she's not makpedes, or the other way around? Do you need both? That's a separate question that the Meforshim speak about. So the Mechaber says it like this, in his words, Ezu iskena, kol shekoirin lo ima befoneo, so he's quoting the actual words used in the sugya, befoneo machmas skenoso, they're calling it because she's old, elderly, ve'eno chosheshes, she's not bothered by it. And there's a machlekes, of course, if she's embarrassed, but she's not makpedes. So, if she's not embarrassed at all, then most likely she's already a skena. That's the point over here. So that's what the Mechaber is saying, that if one were to call her an imo, befoneh in front of her, and in today, I guess, times we would call her a safta or a grandma or something similar, and she's not embarrassed or she's not concerned about it, it doesn't bother her, that would be somewhat of an indicator that she has reached that stage. So I saw in Shiur Shevet HaLevi that he discusses this, and he says, he's seeing women at the age of 45 that they stopped seeing blood. And there was a case with a woman in her late 50s who was still seeing blood, I think. In other words, it really varies. So it's very difficult to pinpoint when that happens. And one has to be machmir until one knows for sure that she's reached a point where most likely she's not going to be sick again. So if a woman for more than a couple of years has not been seeing blood, that in itself is the best sign. And she's, of course, at that age, that is the best sign that she's probably mesulekes damim. Just not having seen 3 periods, and she's in that stage of life in 50, 53, 54, it's not necessarily that she's a skena. So that would be a little bit of a suffix. And it's not always clear as to when you can tell her, you don't have to be chosheshin, unless a good amount of time has transpired, and everybody looks at her as a skena, and she's pretty much comfortable with her new status. All right, now with the skena, what happens if chazra v'roso? In other words, once we've established that she's a skena, she's an older woman, what happens if she goes back to seeing? If we did establish that she's mesulekes damim chazra v'roso, dino kedin tinoikes. Then she has the same status or same halachas applied to her as applied to tinoikes whose time has not yet come to see. So what does that mean? So in Sif Aleph, Mechaber goes on to explain. Chazor lirois be'oinos ktanos shehoiso lemudo liyois roya bohen chazor lekriuso arishain. If she went back to seeing on the exact same time, she just didn't see it once. We just said that in Sif Lamed, what that means. If she just saw, so she's like a ketana. But what that means is that she just saw. But in Lamed Aleph, he elaborates a little bit more. But wait a minute. She didn't just see. If she did go back to seeing at the exact same time that she used to see when she was younger, then she goes back to her original veset, whether in veset ha'aflogos, if it's veset ha'aflogos, she goes back to where it was. If the ha'aflogos is exactly the way she used to have it. If it's some other veset, regardless of what kind of a veset she had, even with one time, she goes back to original vessel, because we can see now, since the body has such a perfect memory, it means that it's revealing to us what she skipped for a while. It wasn't really siluk domeo. She still has blood. The blood didn't go away. It was some incident. It happened by chance. In this, you see one chiluk, one difference between a ketana and a skena. What is that? That she's like a regular woman. If she goes back to see it at the exact same time, then her vesed is back to normal. A ketana, even if she were to go back to seeing at the same time, she has to reestablish it 3 times. She's not expected to see blood. But by here we're saying, well, apparently you're not so old. Apparently you're not mesulekes damim. Now, but if she were to just see once, chazor v'roso and see flamed, then dino kedin tinoikes shelo higya zmano. In other words, there's a good chance she's not going to be getting it. She saw it once. Okay, we're not choishish. But chazor liros in the oinos ktanos, in other words, when she saw it in exact same fashion as she used to see it before, the exact same time, whether it's a haflaga or whether it's some other vesed, then even with once, she goes back lekadmusa. Because that is indicative, or that reveals, that the first time she skipped was not a real skip of mesiluk damim, it was a mikra. Anyway, so that's the difference between aktan and skena. Let's just see one more seif, and next week we'll cover pregnant woman. Now, we've already spoken a little bit about this, so it's not completely new, that it is possible for a woman at times to have 2 vesatot in 1 month, or approximately 1 month. So, Ketzad. Now, this one becomes a little bit difficult unless you read the Meforshim here. Let's see if you can understand what he's saying. All right, so far so good. She saw 3 times on Rosh Chodesh. Urviz bebeis lachodesh, and the 4th time she sees it on the 2nd of the month. Uberosh Chodesh again. And then, of course, she saw this happening in the 5th and 6th month. That means she saw this happening 3 times. And she's seeing it on Rosh Chodesh and on the 2nd of the Chodesh. There's something difficult about this. And they all, of course, talk about it, because it doesn't really make sense if you read it this way and don't think there's a typo here. Because for a person to have it on Rosh Chodesh and on the following day, that's quite normal. We already learned the halacha that you always go by the first day or when it initiates anyway, even though the period extends over several days. So how do you have 2 periods here of 1 day following the next? Right? To say that it's a veset betoch veset? So the Vilna Gaon, everybody says you have to go with the nusach that says it's not beis, it's kof. Round the letter a little bit, not square it, and you have the 20th. And the 20th, yes, even though the 20th is about 11 days short of the next period, that's still a possibility, as we've learned before. In other words, the concept of veset betoch veset is a possibility. We've seen it. But it cannot be that it's talking about 1 day after the other. It would have to be that it's talking about on the 20th. So the Mechaber says, yes, it is possible for a woman to establish 2 vesatot in 1 month. Well, in those situations, if we talk about a child or an older woman, in the event they did see, you're 100% right. They would still have to treat it or deal with it as a real niddah. But with a young girl, unless she was getting married, it wouldn't be that important. And that is why I said earlier that with a child, this halacha is not going to make that much of a difference. But at times, in Iran and elsewhere, they sometimes marry them off very young. And sometimes they marry them off at an age where they cannot even get pregnant, technically. So this wasn't so relevant. But as the child gets closer to adulthood, which is by a girl is 12, not like by a boy 13, this is of course becomes much more relevant. If she were in fact married, because the whole question here is, do you have to be choishish? Choishish for what? If there's no husband, then what's the chash, right? But with skena, yes, skena is much more significant. It means that she would have to go back to the mikveh. It means that by the way, there's a halacha that children do not go to the mikveh really. If a woman is not married, she shouldn't be going to the mikveh. So even though I've seen the Ben Ish Chai brings down, according to the Kabbalah, before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, there was some custom in the past that they used to go, maybe once a year. That's not done today. As far as I know, nobody does that today. But older woman, unless she may be not married anymore, that she has to concern herself with that. If she's still seeing blood, obviously, even though it's not so often, it's not coming every 30 days, coming every, sometimes every 90 days, sometimes every 60 days, it's irregular, she has to be concerned. Now, it is true that as a woman approaches menopause, as a woman gets closer to that stage, she is erratic. I think that would be the word.
Yes, very much.
No. Yeah. The period is erratic. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it could be that she spots. It could be that she spots a lot. It could be that she's seeing it for less days. It could be that she just had it and she has it again 12 days later. And sometimes a woman will say, what's going on? So if she's in her 40s, especially the late 40s, it is normal. I read a whole bunch of articles about this. It is quite normal for that type of activity to occur. Erratic type of period that she may see it, she may skip. But it's not mesulekes domim. It doesn't mean that she stopped seeing altogether. So even though she skipped a month, which is also something that happens occasionally, she still has to be choishish for whatever she was choishish until then, unless, of course, she keres the beset. A keres the beset happens all the time. I mean, it could have. In other words, we will accept that, even though she's not mesulekes domim. It could be she's going to some other kind of a beset. It could be that she was regular and now she's becoming irregular. It could be she was irregular and now becoming regular. So changes can occur. So just the fact that a woman did not see for a little while, a few months, and she's at that stage of 50, give or take, it doesn't mean that it's not a guarantee that she's mesulekes domim. Unless she's quite advanced in age and she hasn't seen it for a while, then we can say, no, you don't have to be choishish. So, a woman who's married, obviously she needs to know this halachas. In the event she does see it, Moshe, as you mentioned, in the event it would happen to her, whether it's a girl or an older woman, she would have to go to the mikveh. There are situations where women who are balei tshuva, who never went to a mikveh, and now they're 60 years old, and they don't have it, we still tell them, go to the mikveh. Go clean yourself from the tumah that's still on you, that has never been removed. So even though she's not seeing right now her period, to do a proper teshuvah, she would have to go into the, even though it's not going to make a difference. I mean, for her, if she's still married, she can't be with her husband. Even though it has nothing to do with the blood now, whether there is or not. There was in the past, and she never went. So at the very least, even though she may not have to go anymore, at the very least one time, she definitely should go. Okay, Mr. Hashem will continue with the last few seif of the Siman.
At later time, we said the child should go or should not.
The child?
I mean, the girl.
The child doesn't go. She's not married. Yeah, children don't go. In other words, all the halachas of children here were, does she have to be choishish? What for? She's married. Could she be married? Yeah, technically she could have been married. So even though she's not expecting it, it's still a possibility. If it does happen, we have to treat it as the real thing. But do we have to be choishish for it? Only if it repeats itself. Then it becomes an established method. Yeah.
If we were worried, not.
That's, of course, a different subject. Then that would be a concern too. Of course. Then we would have to be concerned, for a different reason, that she, watch out.
Because we touch her with the food.
Yeah, but and then it would be a question of, as of when did she see it? That was more the concern then. There's no doubt that once she sees it, she's tmeya, and you have to deal with it properly. But the chashash is really more relationships, If she's not married, it's not a problem.
Another question I have is, says that sorry Imano says that I'm like a woman anymore.
Right.
But the Medrash says she was born with kin with.
Oh, I don't recall that.
Wasn't she born with?
No, she was just infertile. In other words, she was barren.
I thought it was she and one.
It could be that there's some other medrash about it. I don't recall it. But when she says that I stopped, she's at least saying that I've gone beyond the age of where most women, who are able to have children, are able to have it. So she did get signs after that all of a sudden, she's back to being young.
She's back to being. She has to be domestic again.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a big miracle.
I'm not.
Yeah, and that she was able to nurse too.
But you said short of a miracle, like that's where
Right.
it went.
Right. Yeah.
The classic example.
Yeah. No, because there has to be enough eggs as well. A woman can be young, and it's not possible for a variety of reasons. Yeah. But once she reaches that stage, it becomes very, very difficult. Yeah. Okay. So Hashem will continue next week.